The reflection since yesterday and through today has been on bullying and what we can do to protect our children from the impacts of bullying. And that's been a tough question and something on my mind because there are things that we simply cannot protect our children from as far as prevent them from happening. Whether while they're living with us or when they go out on their own, there are things that will happen in the world that we can decrease the likelihood of, hopefully. However, there are certain things that no matter what we do, at some point in their life, things might happen out of our control, and the best we can do to protect them is to prepare them for it. So today I had a discussion with my sons about 4 types of bullying, what these types of bullying have in common with each other. And I actually shared with them why I was sharing it with them. And I'll discuss that here, what the tangible impact is of preparing our children for bullying in this way, and what the tangible impact or cost is of not doing that. And I'll start off with a story which I shared with my sons this morning when I started the conversation with him. My youngest is it's a question he asks whenever I tell him a story these days. Is this the true story? Is this a true story? So I told him, yes, this story I'm about to tell you is a true story. And he went, oh, whoa, and I had his full attention from that point on. A number of years ago, there was an armed break-in at a restaurant, and all the employees were ordered to the floor while everything of value was stolen. And later on, during the police investigation, it was found that with the exception of one employee, all the employees had a total memory loss of the event. They just had the terror of the event, and they had post-traumatic stress disorder from the event. They needed ongoing therapy in order to recover mentally and emotionally, and it was a very extended period before they could return to work again. But they couldn't actually remember the event itself. It was blocked from their memory. On the other hand, there was one employee who could remember with detail the number of attackers, the way they looked, the way they dressed, how their voices sounded like, what they said. He was able to share all this with the police, and he didn't need any sort of therapy to get through it. It was unpleasant, but he just talked it off and returned to work shortly thereafter. Now, when the police investigated what the difference was, they found that this particular employee had some training, if you will, specifically just to mentally prepare himself that these types of things happen in the world. He'd had a concrete sit-down conversation with some folks at a seminar of sorts and had understood these types of things can happen in the world, and just prepare yourself to be mentally aware that it's not a shocker, that it's not something that you've never considered, or if you have, it's been a brief 1, 2, 3 that happens to other people types of things. But he'd actually in-depth gone over the possibilities of these types of scenarios. And because he was mentally prepared for it, at least aware of it, if you will, it didn't cause his mind to go into total shutdown. It was very unpleasant, it was very stressful, but it didn't cause him long-lasting PTSD, and that was the main trauma caused to his peers. Now, in bullying, this is a similar thing. I remember when I was growing up bullying, and I've spoken with a number of people, and seen a number of people who've experienced all the 4 types of bullying that I discussed with my sons that I'll mention here. And a major cause of the long-term trauma, aside from the bullying itself, and the bullying itself was intense, was that they'd not been prepared for it. It'd never been something they'd been spoken to about that this could happen. And these 4 types of bullying that we discussed were social bullying with words, stealing, bullying through taking things and making people afraid their possessions will be taken against their will, physical bullying, pushing and punching, and bullying of an inappropriate nature. Let's play a touching game, or we're going to touch each other's privates, or I'm going to touch your privates or near your privates. So I was thinking since yesterday, how can I prepare my sons for these types of bullying? Hopefully they never happen, but what can I do to bring them on their radar in a way that is as appropriate as possible for their age while still speaking to them about it? So this morning I sat down with them and I started talking about, those different types of bullying, and I brought up a book we have on bullying called My Secret Bully. Very good book. The author's name is Trudy Ludwig. And I said, in all these different types of bullying, and I brought them up, the one thing that's in common is that bullies like to keep it secret. And they'll tell you you're special because you keep their stuff secret. And one thing I brought up to them is that oftentimes we think of bullies as someone who's aggressive, rah, and they just force things on us. And this is a catch. Because if kids go into life thinking that the bullies will always be aggressive, then when the bullies more often than not come across as this really sneaky, slimy friendliness, like, oh, I'm going to come up to you in the playground, and then last minute shove you in the dirt and then laugh about it. Or I'll pretend to be your friend while I'm socially bullying you. Or I'll make it a game and say that you're special until we can have this inappropriate touching game or showing game where I bully you. Come on, you know I'm your friend. You should show me this. It's actually a lot more psychologically traumatic because they've never prepared themselves for that. So I went through this with my sons and said, these are types of bullying to be prepared for. And I brought back to that real story. I said, just like in this scary story where someone broke in the restaurant, the person who understood that this could happen, he was able to maintain his mind. He didn't shut down. I said, so understanding this can happen can mean that you're more likely to have the presence of mind to be able to say, stop, or to call for help, because you're mentally aware of it. I said, even if you're not able to do that, even then, it's going to still be an unpleasant circumstance. Hopefully it won't happen. At least you're able to remember it for afterwards. And I said, because bullies thrive on secrecy, then you can go tell your parents. And I said, and if you want to have a secret, guess what? When you get older, there'll be tons of secrets that get shared with you because you're an adult. That's a big deal. It's one of the things that bullies thrive off of is, oh, I'll tell you secrets, you're special. I told them bullies will tell you that. When you get older, I'll be telling you more and more secrets that you can have as you get older. And they were both excited for that. And then I brought up a final dynamic to this. I said, what do you do if the bully of any of these 4 categories is an adult? I said, it's still a thing. You tell them to stop, but here's the deal. If it's an adult bully, they might add another dynamic, which is unpleasant. I said, the adult bully might tell you, if you tell anybody our secret, I'll hurt your parents. This happens. I know people this has happened to. I told them, if that happens, then what you do is you don't tell them you're going to tell your parents, but you tell your parents anyways, because that's ridiculous. They might say they can, but actually they can't. Your parents can call the police, or your parents can do whatever they have to, but that person won't be able to. And the purpose of this, because I was thinking for a number of days, is how can I prepare them for it? Their mother was there. I did a little acting role. My mother-in-law was also there, and I pretended to my wife that I was a bully, saying, don't tell anybody. Did the regular, you're my, friend, it's our secret. And the one where I said, okay, I'm the adult, don't tell your parents, I'll hurt them. And she said, okay, I won't tell my parents. And she went and told her mother. And the main idea in this is how can we prepare our children for the real life things that come up? Understand we don't want them to happen, but if they do happen, how can they at least be prepared? And that's how I dealt with that, and that's what I'm reflecting on today.